Hi everyone, and welcome to week 4. In week 4, you're going to be looking at the following for your requirements: the Federal Reserve Discussion Board, the effects of bank lending, the week 4 quiz, which is due by Sunday night, and your journal exercise. Here's an introduction for what you're looking at. You're looking at reading chapters 11, 12, and 14 this week. I have an interesting multimedia resource for you, and in this multimedia resource you're looking at the story of the dollar. And you're also going to be looking at how big banks are and what are the rules of these large banks. I also have the website of the Federal Reserve Bank, which I think you might find is very interesting to evaluate at this point, given how important it is to our economy. For this week, you'll have two discussions. The two discussions that you're going to focus on is the role of the Fed during the recession. So from 2007 to 2010, the Fed used many practices that had never been seen before. From the Central Bank of the United States, you're going to discuss some actions that they took. How was the Fed's lending practices, how did they change during that time period? So what were some of the changes that occurred with the Fed when we look at the Fed now compared to back in 2000s? How did we deal with these changes in our economy? Now, why did the Fed state that we are too big to fail? So why did they go after companies that were very large and they tried to protect them? What was one of their reasons for protecting large companies? If these large companies collapsed, would the economy collapse? So that's something you want to focus on. Now, do you believe these actions were necessary to avoid a collapse in the financial system? So if the Fed did not take action, how would that have influenced our economy? Would it have actually created a depression or not? And that's something you want to focus on, because when you look at that depressionary state, that'll create a lot of challenges for our economy. We have to evaluate. Now, in discussion board 2, you're going to be looking at expansionary monetary policy. And when we look at expansionary monetary policy, we're looking at the effect of bank lending. So decrease in interest rates cause an increase in investment. And this increase in investment, how will it affect consumer spending, investment spending, or businesses? And how does that affect aggregate demand, GDP, and unemployment? So you notice when the interest rates are lower, people will spend more money. And that's the key thing. When interest rates are lower, people spend more. So focus on this and why a credit crunch might result. And a credit crunch is when there is not enough lending and banks are not willing to lend. So make sure to focus on that as well. For the journal, you only have to write 3 to 4 paragraphs to complete that assignment as well. So for this week, in the discussion board, make sure, as just a review, first post by Thursday night. In your initial post, you need to have 2 peer responses, an AP formatted in-text citation and reference. And you also need to have 2 peer responses, which can be to any of my questions that I ask any of the students as well. But I look forward to your effort this week.